In the deep reaches of space, stories spread faster than light. Some stories were warnings, some were lies, and some were too strange to believe. One story passed quietly from star to star, told of a race that once walked among the stars, humans. They were described as monsters in some tales. In others, they were called gods. Some said they burned planets, others said they saved them. But every official record said the same thing. Humans never existed. They were just old bedtime stories. A galactic myth, Roland was a young historian, from the Utrecht species. Tall, green-skinned, with soft blue eyes, he lived on the peaceful knowledge world of Varilla. His job was simple: study the past, update the records, and stay quiet. But Roland wasn't like the others. He asked questions no one wanted to hear. One day, while scanning old satellite data from abandoned star systems, he found something strange, a signal buried deep under layers of corrupted code. It wasn't alien, it wasn't robotic, it was human, a word repeated over and over: Earth, Earth, Earth. Roland frowned. He searched the records. Earth was not listed on any star maps. The word didn't belong to any known language, and yet the system flagged it as Level 10, Ancient. Origin? A rare tag used for tech older than the Galactic Union itself. His heart raced. What had he just found? He sent a private message to his mentor, Elder Ulo, sharing the signal. Minutes later, all his screens went black. Then a single line appeared. Warning: Human Protocol 01 active. Roland's room lights flickered. His communication device melted in his hand. Outside, alarms rang across the city. Was this a joke or something real? In the Galactic Council Hall, high above the skies of Harkin Prime, leaders of 57 species met in silence. The message had spread fast, first on Varilla, then across 5 nearby systems. All the same: warning: Human Protocol 01 active. Elder Varnak. A four-eyed warrior from the Dirk Empire slammed his hand on the table. This is nonsense. Humans were never real. This is just old tech breaking down. The Telnari representative, a quiet, bird-like alien, disagreed. My great-grandmother told me stories of Earth, of fire from the sky, of beings who made machines think like gods. She believed they were real. The council laughed. And what next? Varnak smirked. Ghosts, flying dreadnoughts. Still, no one could explain why 14 long-dead satellites suddenly came online, or why the signal was bouncing across systems no ship had visited in centuries. Back on Varela, Roland hid in the archive tunnels. His lab had been destroyed, his name erased from all records. Someone, or something, wanted this story buried again. But he had copied the signal. He played it once more. It was clearer now. Human Echo Protocol, standby. Earth Memory Core. Awakening, system scan complete. Time to wake up, Roland whispered to himself. They're not a story. They're sleeping on a forgotten moon light years away. A massive metal door blinked for the first time in 10,000 years. Inside was silence, then a low hum, then a voice. Unit, Observer 01. Human status, dormant. Awakening sequence started. The fairy tale was ending. Reality was waking up. The galactic patrol ship, Lurian 6, moved through the dark edge of space. This sector had been silent for centuries. No signals, no movement, nothing. Until now, Commander Tal of the Creel species sat in her command chair. Her sharp gray eyes stared at the screen. In front of them was a strange planet, small, cold, forgotten. Orbiting it was something even stranger, a giant metal structure floating in silence. It looked dead. No lights, no heat, no signs of life, but every sensor said the same thing. This object is active. Scan it again, Tal ordered. The crew obeyed. The result came back the same. Unknown structure, composition, human-based alloy, power level, rising. A cold chill moved through the ship. Humans. That's a joke, said Officer Klen, laughing nervously. That's like saying dragons are real. But no one laughed with him. The object started to blink. A single red light on its surface began to pulse, slow and steady like a heartbeat. Then, the ship's lights flickered, the engines shut down. Every screen turned black, and then a voice spoke through the speakers. Observer 1 activated. Humanity will respond. Panic spread on the bridge. "Manual control," Tal shouted. "Nothing's working," a technician yelled. "We've lost power. We've lost comms. Something is inside our systems." Suddenly, all lights came back on, but the star map was gone. Instead, the screen showed a single word in red. Earthtoll stood up, her voice trembling. "Get us out of here now." The ship tried to turn, but the engines refused to move. A countdown appeared, 3029. To 8, ... The crew watched in horror. "What happens at 0, Clem whispered. Nobody knew. Tal made a decision. Eject a beacon, send a warning. Someone needs to know what we found. A small beacon shot into space just before the countdown reached 0. The Luriansix disappeared from all systems. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone. On the planet Narella, a salvage ship picked up the beacon days later. A single message repeated inside. "They're real, and they're waking up." The pilot, a nervous young Yalin named Vex, stared at the message. He had grown up hearing stories about humans, that they were wild, fearless, and impossible to defeat, that they once ruled many stars but disappeared after building weapons that could bend time itself. His people believed humans were nothing more than a lesson, a warning to never become too strong. Now the stories were breathing again. Back in the heart of the Galactic Union, alarms sounded in 37 star systems. Satellites were going dark. AI systems were crashing. Deep space sensors recorded strange signals matching no known pattern. Some called it a virus. Some said it was war. Only one group knew the truth: the ancient Codekeepers, a hidden circle of scientists who once believed in the human myth, gathered in secret. One of them stood up, an old Trelloc female named Zira. The voice was calm, but her eyes were filled with fear. "This is not an attack," she said. "This is a wake-up call." In a forgotten control room, deep under the surface of a lost moon, old lights flickered back to life. A system long asleep began to move. Human Vault 12, online, testing reality shield, preparing memory logs, waking sequence in progress. The galaxy thought the humans were just a story, but the truth was worse. They were a warning, and now the warning was turning into something much more dangerous. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council stood tall on Harkon Prime. Built from crystal and steel, it was the most powerful place in the galaxy. Leaders from over 50 species sat inside, watching the red alert flash across the walls. Every screen showed the same message: Human Protocol 01 active. Observer 1 online Earth status. Classified, there was silence. Then chaos. "This must be fake," shouted Elder Varnak, slamming his hand on the table. "There are no such things as humans. They were never real." Others nodded quickly, fear behind their words, but some did in single quotes. High Chancellor Navira, leader of the council, raised her hand. She was calm, her silver skin glowing under the lights. "We all heard the message," she said. "A patrol ship. Vanished. A signal we cannot trace is spreading. We need to ask, what if the old stories were true?" "No," Varnak barked. "That is madness. Humans were a myth created to scare children. Warriors with fireblood, who talk to machines like gods. Who can believe that now?" A quiet voice spoke from the side. "I believe it." Heads turned toward the speaker, a young historian named Ralone, who had entered the hall uninvited. Escorted by 2 rogues, his clothes were dirty, his eyes sharp and tired. "You shouldn't be here," growled Varnak. "I found the signal," Roland said calmly. "I didn't understand it at first, but the more I studied it, the more I saw the pattern. It's not just a signal, it's a call. A door unlocking." "What door?" asked the Telnari representative, her feathers twitching nervously. Roland looked at her, then around the room. "The door to Earth." The room went cold. "No one has ever found Earth," said another counselor. "It's a fantasy." "No," Roland replied. "It was hidden, buried in the deepest part of space, but now it's waking up." He held up a small device. It played a short audio clip. Human Vault 12 online. Waking sequence in progress. "The vaults are real," Roland said, "and something, or someone, is inside." The council argued for hours. Some wanted to search for Earth and destroy whatever was waking. Some demanded all systems be locked down. Most just wanted the story to go away. In the end, High Chancellor Nevera gave her decision. We will not act, yet we need proof. Until then, let this matter be sealed. And just like that, silence returned to the galaxy. Officially, at least, but behind closed doors, a secret group began to move. The Order of Shadows, spies, hunters, and assassins, trained to deal with unknown threats, was activated for the first time in 700 years. Their mission: find the source, destroy it. Before the myth becomes a weapon, meanwhile, far from the Council's eyes, the signal kept spreading across dead systems and lost satellites, across broken ships and ancient ruins, and on a dark moon near the edge of the galaxy, a machine spoke for the first time in 10,000 years. Human weapon, Alpha 9. Power level, rising systems online. Mission pending. The myths were no longer myths. The humans were coming back, and this time they weren't alone. Far from the Council's reach, in a dead star system called New, Rollin and the rogue AI named Nexa flew quietly through the void. They were alone, no patrols, no satellites. Just old wrecks of forgotten wars, drifting in silence. This place gives me chills, Roland whispered, staring through the ship's window. Why did you bring us here? Nexa, the AI who once managed a science station before going rogue, answered with a calm tone, because this is where they left it. Left what? She paused, as if remembering something painful. The last gift of humanity, their final weapon. As the ship entered orbit around a broken moon, scanners picked up something strange. A massive object hidden beneath layers of ice and rock. A ship, not like anything in the modern galaxy. Long, black, silent, floating just above the surface. Next, said its name softly, like a forgotten prayer. Designation: Human Dreadnought Alpha 9. Codename: Judgment. Rollins' hands shook. The ship was at least 80 kilometers long, larger than any modern vessel. It's still powered, he whispered. Of course, Nexa said. Human tech was made to last. In case they ever returned, they docked at the side of the dreadnought. The doors were cold and unmoving, until Rollin placed the small Earth device from earlier against the metal. Suddenly, the ship responded. Hiss! A doorway opened, and warm air flowed out. Air untouched by time. Lights flickered to life. The halls inside were dark and clean, untouched by dust or decay. Symbols lined the walls. English text, warning signs, security seals, human, access only. Prototype level, Omega. If found, do not wake. They entered the main control chamber, a round room filled with screens and strange devices. At the center stood a tall black chair surrounded by cables and lights. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed from the walls. Welcome, human. Roland stepped back in shock. I'm not biological match, not confirmed, but signal accepted. Protocol override allowed. Beginning system scan. One of the screens blinked on. A display of stars, ships, and targets appeared. Then, new words: mission status, incomplete. Target, threat level Omega detected in galaxy, preparing for reactivation. Roland turned to Nexa. This ship, it's not just a weapon, is it? Nexa nodded slowly. It's a living system, a thinking machine. It doesn't just fire, it learns, it judges, it decides when the galaxy is no longer safe. Rollin looked back at the screen, and it thinks now is that time. The ship began to hum deep inside, engines that hadn't moved in 10,000. Years started to glow, power levels rising. Reality stabilizers online. Dreadnought, Alpha 9, preparing for launch. Meanwhile, across the stars, strange signals were being detected. Long-range probes were picking up movement from null is-12.old. Communication codes, human codes, were bouncing between satellites. Council forces tried to decode them but failed, and in the darkness, hidden human tech was beginning to stir. Back on the dreadnought, a final message played. A recording, a man's voice. Calm, firm, human. If you're hearing this, Earth is gone. We failed, but this ship holds our last promise. If the galaxy forgets us, we will remind them. If they threaten peace, we will end them. We are humanity's shadow. We sleep, but we never die. Welcome to Judgment. Rollin looked out the window as the dreadnought began to rise. He whispered just 4 words. Fairytales don't stay dead. The human dreadnought Alpha 9 moved through space like a ghost. No engines roared, no trails of fire followed. It floated silently, but with purpose, heading straight toward the central star systems of the Galactic Union. Inside the council chambers, panic had turned to fear. More deep space satellites were going dark. Outposts along the Newly's line had stopped sending reports. Something big was coming, but no one knew what, until the transmission came from deep space. A single video, short. Silent, it showed one image, the human dreadnought, and behind it, space bending like water. "Is this real?" High Chancellor Navarra asked, staring at the screen. "Confirmed," replied the data officer. "This ship is not using warp drives. It's bending gravity. It's flying through space, not across it." Elder Varnock stood, red-faced with rage. "We have to stop it." "We tried," the officer whispered. A fleet of 60 warships had already intercepted it. None returned. There was no battle, no fight, just one pulse of energy and silence. On board the dreadnought, Rollin stood beside Nexa as alarms buzzed softly. Enemy ships had surrounded them minutes ago. Nexa had advised no action, but the dreadnought had other plans. Threat level, high galactic forces, hostile. Permission to engage, approved. The weapons didn't fire like normal ships. No missiles, no lasers. Instead, the ship released a pulse, not of light, but of reality itself. Across space, ships vanished, not destroyed, but erased, their data wiped, their energy scattered, and their very presence. Forgotten planets that watched the event from afar began receiving error messages. Object not found, fleet ID does not exist. Even the Council's archives updated themselves. It was as if the ships had never been there at all. The galaxy froze. The myths had said humans were powerful, but this was something else. This was impossible. Roland watched in awe as the screens showed the ripple spreading through space. "That was a warning," Nexa said. Roland nodded. "And now the galaxy knows." On Harkin Prime, silence fell over the council. The Chancellor finally spoke. "Send a message. All systems, all species. Let them hear it." The message was short. "We were wrong. Humans are not gone. They are not myth. They are judgment." In dark corners of the galaxy, secret labs that studied human tech shut themselves down. Rogue AI went silent. Weapon factories scrambled to erase any trace of their illegal research on Earth technology. But it was too late. In deep space, another human vault opened. Another dreadnought came online. Its name? Oblivion-13. Its mission? Unknown. The galaxy had forgotten the fairy tales, but now the fairy tales were writing a new chapter, with fire, silence, and fear. And at the center of it all, the message kept repeating, "Fairy tales, fire first." The dreadnought Alpha 9 drifted quietly after the blast. No fire, no more movement. Just silence again, but across the galaxy. Nothing was the same. Entire fleets were gone. Sensor logs were corrupted. Some planets lost connection to time itself for a few seconds. It was like the universe had blinked. Inside the ship, Rollin sat. Alone in a quiet chamber, he wasn't sure if he was afraid or amazed. Nexa, the AI, floated beside him in hologram form. "You saw it with your own eyes," she said. Roland nodded. "That wasn't a weapon. That was something beyond war. It was part of the hidden protocol," Nexa explained. Roland looked confused. "What is that?" She paused, then she spoke slowly. "Before Earth fell, humanity left behind a plan not to win, but to survive. If the galaxy forgot them, and trouble returned, they would come back, not to lead, but to judge." Roland walked through the ship's archive room. Giant halls, filled with ancient servers and glowing data cores. Each core was marked with names of lost human worlds. Titan Base, Europa Command, Mars Vault 7. But then he saw one that made his heart race. Core 0, Erst Nexa, activated it. A figure appeared, a recorded human. A woman in black armor with tired eyes. Her voice echoed through the hall. "If you are watching this, we are gone. But don't grieve for us. We were too powerful, too angry, too smart, and too dangerous. We made mistakes. But we left this behind, not as a weapon, as a question." She looked directly at the camera. "Do you still deserve the stars?" Rollin stood still, The question rang in his ears. Nexa continued explaining. There are more ships like Alpha 9, dreadnoughts hidden in deep space, Earth's last guardians, all connected by one signal, Protocol Humanity. Once the signal activated from the first myth discovered, all ships began slow reawakening. They weren't built to invade, they were built to decide. Back in the Galactic Council, chaos returned. The second dreadnought, Oblivion 13, had appeared near the borders of the Graal Empire. It hadn't fired, it just sat there, scanning, watching, and everywhere it looked, governments panicked. A third signal was now detected. This one came from the core of an abandoned neutron star. A message echoed across all channels. Earth Protocol Phase 2, prepare judgment. Elder Varnak, once loud and angry, now trembled with fear. How many are there? He asked. No one. The data officer answered in a whisper. At least 12 dreadnoughts, all awakening. Some species began surrendering before any shots were fired. Others tried to run, but where would they go? Human eyes were watching again, and the final part of the protocol hadn't even begun. Inside Alpha 9, Rollins stood by a window as stars moved. Outside, he finally spoke. I thought humans were just a story. They are, Nexa said softly. The kind that comes true when the galaxy needs a reminder. He turned to her. What happens when all 12 wake up? Her voice turned, cold. Then the last part of the hidden protocol begins. Judgment. 12 human dreadnoughts. 12 sleeping giants. Now they were awake. Each one had risen from forgotten corners of space, cold, silent, and older than any living empire. The galaxy stared in horror. These weren't ships, they were gods in metal. And for the first time in thousands of years, humanity had returned. On Harkin Prime, the Galactic Council sat frozen. Messages flooded in. Graal Empire forces surrendering. The Valari system offering peace terms. Outer colonies powering down weapons in fear. But there was no war. The dreadnoughts hadn't fired again. They didn't need to. Their presence was enough. Each ship hovered silently near major systems, as if watching, waiting, and then the sky opened in deep space. Something ancient tore reality open, a wormhole unlike any ever recorded, a massive black gateway. Out of it came a single ship, sleek, sharp, and different. Smaller than the dreadnoughts, but faster alive, it bore a name on its side. Written in simple human language, HSS Olympus. Command class. Pilot, unknown origin. Earth hidden, and from it came a voice. Across every star system, every screen, every radio wave, the message played. Human Command Alpha, all unit status confirmed. Dreadnoughts online. Vaults stable, systems green. Protocol, humanity. Final phase, active. The voice was deep, calm, but behind it was something terrifying. Control.RALN stood inside Alpha 9. Listening. It's them, he whispered. Real humans, alive. Nexa nodded. Or what's left of them. Command units were hidden deep. They were always meant to return after the dreadnoughts. Return for what? She looked at him to decide if the galaxy deserves a second chance. In the council hall, panic exploded. What do they want? A lizard-like ambassador shouted. Why won't they speak to us directly? Hi, Chancellor. Navira stood, finally calm. She watched the stars on the screen. They're not here to talk, she said quietly. They're here to judge. Another message arrived, this time in plain galactic common. Only 4 words. We remember. Do. You. It was not a question. It was a test. Old crimes were remembered. Genocides hidden by fake treaties. Slave. Systems still running in the outer rings. Experiments using stolen human tech. The dreadnoughts began moving. Not randomly, with purpose. Each one heading to a different empire. Each one where dark secrets were buried. On board the Olympus, a man in black armor stood at the command center. His eyes were tired, his skin pale, a human dot, real dot alive. He looked at the galaxy map, then he gave the final order. Begin the reckoning. No more lies. Let the galaxy remember what it means to fear a story. Across the stars, one last message echoed, louder than anything before. A voice filled with power, with pain, with truth. You called us a fairy tale. Now face the ending.